Griga, and Brian Pazoo. Help me. Palazzo. I'm Italian, I should be able to do that. And 12 outstanding players, Ben Hurp, Colin Curley, Tommy DeMera, Bowden Dunlap, Logan Griga, Dante Madeira, Charlie McCullough, Brian Paluzza, Luca Pellegrini, Joe Sarantino, Jimmy, oh boy, Jimmy. Help me out, Jimmy. Massachusetts. Yeah. Okay. And S.J. Calcertides. And whereas the 10U All-Star team began its run in late June, capturing Connecticut's District 2 championship, amassing an 8-0 record against neighboring leagues. Your team then won its next 6 games, marching to the Connecticut state title. Whereas, through your hard work and dedication and sheer determination, you continued your momentum to Cranston, Rhode Island, and concluded an amazing summer season, remaining undefeated across 4 pool play games, and ultimately defeating Massachusetts 11-1. That was a great game. It was. In the New England Championship. Whereas the town of Fairfield is so grateful to the coaches, to the families, and our residents and businesses in our community for their support, and that helped shape the summer of a lifetime of memories. Did you have great memories? Did you have great memories? Whereas the town of Fairfield warmly congratulates and shares its deep pride for Fairfield National Little League 10U All-Star champions, who represent the very best of our community and make us so proud. Now, therefore, I, Brenda L. Kupchik, first selectwoman of the town of Fairfield, do hereby proclaim Monday, August 21st, as Fairfield National Little League 10U All-Star Team Day. And we have some donations here for Colin. Go away, Colin. And Tommy. Bowden Dunlap. No, I'm gonna make sure you're on FairTV. I can't tell. Logan. Ben. I like that. Dante. Charlie? Sorry. Brian? Wait, your TV land. Oh, I like that. Luca?
No, he's the one.
Okay. Joe Sorrentino. SJ. You're welcome. Thank you. Jimmy. And I have some for our outstanding coaches. Not early. Dave. The one on behalf of the. say, on behalf of the town, really, to the coaches, you dedicate so much of your time, you volunteer, you don't have to do it. You do it for the kids, and you give them such an experience that they're never gonna forget, never. And you give the families that exceptional experience of watching their children be part of the team, bonding, creating memories that you're gonna last a lifetime, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for honoring these boys here today. They mean a lot, they play hard, and we have a good team, and we plan on getting back next year and the year after. Williamsport would be a phenomenal journey, but we'll take this year one step at a time. And thank you for honoring us today. We really appreciate it. We did bring a couple of our flags. I don't know if anybody wants to take a picture with them.
Yeah, that would be great.
This one here was we got a few of them this year. This is our Connecticut State Championship flag. You guys hold these guys both in right here.
Oh, okay. This one is.
And that is our New England flag right here that we won, captured when we got New England for
This is great.
anybody.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I think we should stay just like this. You're gonna grab that end. And you're gonna grab this way.
Perfect.
Where's the coaches? Let's get in, coaches.
Him is him.
Parents, where are you going? Hi, don't want to be in the newsletter? Oh, no, running. You're like my kid's dad.
It's okay.
Yeah, you have to come here. All right.
Ready?
Left the thumbs up.
We have one more.
All right, right here. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. All right, well, really, we're so excited for you guys. Thank you for coming here and making a boring Board of Selectmen meeting.
We appreciate it. We're good, right? You don't want us talking about sitting here, but that.
What don't you want to hear?
I do. Maybe these guys.
Exciting things happening in your town.
We got to go back to practice and get ready for next year.
Well, that's right. Get ready for next year.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody on the video.
Congratulations.
Go out a little bit. Thank you.
Congratulations, everybody.
All right.
These kids really need to bust out of their shells.
Thanks for giving us a fun summer watching you. It was exciting. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, buddy.
I coached the team to 4th place.
Thank you so much.
Vicious this morning, Joy. I coached the team, but it was a girl.
I did that too.
Thank you so much. It meant a lot to everybody.
I think we made it to something like that.
That's it. Thank you.
Oh, that was so nice. We just had to meet now.
Refreshing, right?
It is refreshing. Good Lord. Okay. Well, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Hey, Brian.
Oh, hi, John. How are you? You see all the little leaguers? You're so cute. Did your kids play for American or
National.
Yeah, that was national. Yeah, they did really well this year. Okay. All right, so, okay, item number 4. To consider and act upon the minutes of July 20th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll
Okay.
second them.
Is there any discussion on this item?
No.
Nope.
Okay, very good. So, is there any discussion from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is, item number 6, to hear and consider and approve Board of Selectmen compensation for the next term. Do I have a motion to approve?
So
My-
moved.
Yeah, am I not remembering that? I thought we had some resignations. Am I getting that wrong?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
Yeah, we
apologize,
do.
I skipped. Okay, item number 5. Do I have a motion to approve Theodore Devon to fill the term from 11/21 to 11/25, full member? He's going to replace Nicholas Mirabli, who resigned to serve on the RTM, and he's not able to be available due to a work commitment. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on this item?
There's not from me.
Any from you, Nancy?
Nope.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. I just want to say I thank Ted for stepping up to serve and the Land Acquisition Commission, and we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to
Aye.
abstain.
Okay,
What did she say?
abstain.
And I'd thank him for stepping up, and I wish him the best in this new position.
Thank you, Tom.
Same. Good luck.
And the second part of item number 5 is approve Stephen Sikakoff of Katona Drive, and he will be an alternate member to replace alternate Theodore, who moved up in the last one. So he's will be an alternate member on the land acquisition. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on this item from the board?
Not from me.
Nope.
Any from the public?
Would you like to ask me any questions?
Well, you're more than welcome to say a few words if you'd like. Would you want to stand up? Yeah, sure. I think they could see you there. I don't know how this works really, the new cameras. Yes, there you are.
Thank you, and I just wanted to share why I wanted to do this.
Oh.
I've been living in town for 17 years. It's a wonderful town.
Sorry, it's hard to hear. Is it just me? I'm sorry.
Is there a microphone here?
It's in the, oh, is it, oh, we're doing those? I thought it was the thing now. Yeah, I thought that
Sorry.
was,
Can you hear me?
Sorry to
Can you hear me
interrupt.
better now?
Thank you.
can you hear?
Thank you. So I've been a resident of town for 17 years, and I wanted to give back. And I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I wanted her to be able to see what it takes to volunteer and be involved. Also, about 27 years ago, my family home in Weston was acquired by the town to expand the campus for the schools, and that property is now the Weston Intermediate School. So more than a quarter century later, to have an opportunity to join this commission and to provide the advice of going through that and what the greater good is, I just wanted to be able to speak on that.
No, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to share that with the board. When I first got involved in local government many years ago, the Land Acquisition Commission had just kind of was born at the time, and there was a lot of funding put into it, and it actually purchased a lot of open space property throughout our town over the last 20 or more years, which has been extraordinarily beneficial, I think. They had the hindsight even back then, so we're so happy to have you step up and serve.
Thank you very much, and it's also an honor to be here on the same day that the 10U team is on. My daughter's on the 11U All-Star team, and they didn't win the regionals, but I'm really honored to be here and see such happy faces.
Wasn't it sweet?
So
You picked a good meeting.
I did. So I'm glad I got to speak, and if
So I'll ask the board, do you have any questions or comments for Stephen?
I'd just like to wish him the best of luck, and I think he'll find that public service in the town of Fairfield is very worthwhile. So thank you for stepping up.
Obviously,
Tom.
it's a nice synergy with the story you shared about the land in Weston, and I know that area well. I grew up in Westport, but what you just said about your daughter is really nice. But I'm going to abstain today, not because you're not a worthy candidate. We didn't have a chance to connect prior to this, and so I'll be abstaining, but it sounds like you have the support, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks for coming. Is there any additional comment from the public? Back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
And just abstain. Thanks.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you next time.
Oh, great. Okay, item number 6. Can I get a motion to hear and consider and approve Board of Selectmen compensation for the next term?
So moved.
I'll second it.
And the chairman, Mr. Matola, who has served on this apparently before, and was gracious enough to step up and do it again. And so if you want to just, maybe just for our public's edification, John, maybe, because most people
Sure.
don't know about this.
Thank you, and good to see all of you. So every 4 years is a compensation recommendation committee. It's made up of 2 members of the Board of Finance, Democrat and Republican, 2 members from the RTM, a Democrat and Republican. This year, the members were myself. I'm John Matola. I'm on the Board of Finance. Sharon Pistilli, that's on the RTM. James Walsh, who's on the Board of Finance, and Ed Bateson, who's on the RTM. And our purpose is to review the compensation for the Board of Selectmen, and that's what we did this year. And I can give you just real briefly our thought process. I did send the board an email on June 8th of 2023 with our recommendations. Previously, the salary for a first select person as of July 1st, 2023 is $148,721. And using that as the base salary moving forward, we recommended July 1st, 2024, a 2.5% increase. July 1st, 2025, a 2.5% increase. July 1st, 2026, a 2.25% increase. And July 1st, 2027, a 2.25% increase. And we looked at all of the surrounding municipalities, comparable positions, to come up with our recommendation. Looked at Westport, Darien, Bridgeport, Norwalk, those areas, Trumbull, and we found that we thought that it was necessary to have these modest increases to stay competitive. And also we looked at recent increases for collective bargaining agreements for municipalities, and the trend is between 2.5% to 2.6%. So that, along with inflation over the last couple of years, we thought that these increases were justified. You have to weigh, this is a public sector position, but it's also a position running a town of 60,000 individuals and residents, so it's a substantial position. And also, very importantly, just for this body's knowledge, over the last 4 years, the total increase for the first select person position was 2.5% over the whole 4-year period. So we felt it was these increases, as we recommended, were certainly justified. So that was the first thing. The other part of the what we looked at was the insurance cost sharing, and the first select person cost sharing is tied to and follows the percentages paid by department heads, and it currently is at 18%. And we recommended no change to this. We looked at what the various unions are paying in this area, and it's between 12.25% up to 17%. So 18% paid by department heads for insurance cost sharing, and the first select person is higher, and it is setting an example. The one thing I wanted to point out is 4 years ago, I was on the committee 4 years ago along with Pam Iacono, Chris DeWitt, myself, and Sharon Pistilli, that we recommended that the first select person position cost sharing be at 21% starting on July 1st, 2020, and go to 1% each year until it reached 24% cost sharing as of July 1st, 2023. The thought back then was that the public sector employees were being asked to pay higher contributions, and if I recall, the Board of Education employees are being asked to pay maybe as high as 20%. At least that was the trend, and so we thought that would be appropriate. For reasons that unknown to us, that never happened. So I just wanted to point that out to the board to make sure that if you vote on these recommendations, that we've recommended that they're followed through. Now, just going back to cost sharing, the trend actually 4 years later has been to go back down. I don't know, Tom, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
John, it is disconcerting that it was the recommendation. I guess it was approved by the previous Board of Selectmen. Is that
It
right?
was. Right.
And then that's disconcerting. I'd like to just ask that somebody follow back up as to why that didn't happen. But does that mean that the first select person was paying 18% cost sharing during that period of time?
I believe so, yes, over the last 4 years. I didn't look into that. That's not our charge.
Understood.
I did pull the minutes from the Board of Selectmen meeting
Right.
4 years ago. It was an agenda item. I wasn't asked to come speak. I think they just voted on it. So that's what happened.
I think we should just look into why maybe that didn't happen, what the effect was, and then just understand the percentage that the first select person was paying during this period, just right. in fairness and transparency. That's all.
I guess the first question, if I could piggyback on that, was the first select person cost sharing at all? Because I understand the salary raise was taken. There was an understanding. So it's just, to use your word, it's concerning or disconcerting as why the cost sharing didn't happen. So one, I think we need to confirm that it happened at all. To what that amount looks like and how it's going to be rectified. And I would even further ask why it's being lowered down to 18%, but maybe that's a question for down the line, because I do have several questions.
I can speak to your latter question there, Nancy. The trend actually in public sector employment over the last few years has been to kind of stabilize the insurance cost sharing. They were going as high as up to 20 to 25%, and public sector positions, we were losing employees, because I can tell you where I work in Bridgeport, the new employees started at 25% and it went up 1% every year. And they were finding that any raise that a public sector employee received was getting eaten up by the higher cost sharing. So in Bridgeport, just recently with a bunch of their unions, they've reverted back. They've gone back down or locked it in, let's say, at 25% or actually moved it down to like the 20% raise. So that's the trend right now. And so our recommendation as a committee was, notwithstanding what happened over the last 4 years, is that we felt that the 18% that is currently being, that the first select person position on the cost sharing is paying is justified, and it's reasonable and rational. It's still, so it's higher than what all the employees in the Fairfield are paying. It sets an example. The department heads and the first select person are paying the 18%. And as I indicated earlier, it's around 12.25% to 17% cost sharing for most of the employees in Fairfield right now. So that was our thought process. So, and then I'll just briefly say that we looked at the travel stipend for the first select person position, and it's at $6,000 per year, and we felt no need to change that. And then for our selectmen, their current salary is $12,000 per year. We recommend that remain in place with no increase. Not that you don't do a great job, but the salary is very competitive with surrounding municipalities, and there are Board of Selectmen who the selectmen don't get paid at all. So that was our conclusion. Yes, Tom. I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, John. I appreciate the explanation. Going back to the health insurance, the 18% doesn't bother me. That sounds about right for the given that it's higher than others and in line with department heads. I guess the one question I have is, who actually decides? Do we remember on what the department heads kick in?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I don't know what the answer to that question is, Tom, to be quite honest with you. We asked for information. Department heads are at 18%. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
And then we got the information about what employees in Fairfield generally are paying. It's 12.25% to 17%. So I am not sure. Maybe that comes from the first select person position. They make that determination. I just don't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think, look, this is a vast improvement, this whole process over what it was a number of years ago, John. I don't remember whether you were on the Board of Finance or not when we kind of wrestled with this and kind of segregation of duties and making sure everything was reasonable here. I'm glad to see you're finding we're more in line. I'm glad we're doing the increases and that they're in line with what we're doing with some of our public sector employees. The commentary over the insurance kick in and that, it doesn't surprise me based on what I'm seeing in the private sector. That percentage is, stabilized or going down a little bit. I will say the whole commentary over kind of salary increases being eaten up by insurance. I mean, welcome to what happens in the private sector, right? I mean, that's just what's been happening in many customers or many clients of mine over the past number of years. So everything kind of seems in line. I am disconcerted over the fact that a decision being made didn't follow through for whatever reason. I think we should just check on that. And I would like to follow up to decide on who decides on the percentages that the department heads kick in, just to make sure that we have that appropriate segregation of duties as we move forward. And I thank you and your committee for your work on this. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, John. Nice to see
Nancy.
you. And thank you and your committee for diving into this. And I actually agree and support the commentary from Mr. Flynn, but taking some exception, I also agree. I just want to drill down that I think, it's a systemic thing perhaps, and just one of the areas in terms of financial controls that need to be looked into in terms of that cost sharing piece and why it happened or how it was able to happen. Can you tell me, John, when you were looking at other municipalities, were other communities, in theory, the salary and the insurance, that is not sort of quote problematic to me, but did those other communities have chief administrative officer type positions? Was the makeup of the first select person's office similar to what we have in Fairfield?
If I recall, fairly similar, yes. There was talk about, just amongst our committee, about the idea for you want to have a salary that attracts people to want to run for the position, and because it's a substantial position, as all of us know. There was talk about maybe even having a higher salary than what we recommended, but then we spoke about, and I think this is kind of good government, that over the last few years we have added a CAO position. And back to a full-time chief of staff position to help whoever the first select person is run the town. So we weighed those factors into, ultimately the first select person is in charge. It is responsible for everything. but the current position has, and I think rightfully so, some more assistance to run a town of 60,000 people. So we balanced all those factors to come up with our recommendations. And that's kind of how we looked at it. And, you know, we were all unified and agreed about this. It just sort of, you know, the residents of Fairfield, you know, it was 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans and 2 members of the Board of Finance and 2 members of the RTM, and we spoke about it and knocked it around and looked at documentation from other municipalities, and we were in consensus that this was appropriate and fair, these increases.
Okay. I have a couple more questions. And that is the part-time selectman position. I'm not advocating for myself because, as has been made clear, I won't be rerunning for this position. But in thinking about future selectmen who are serving, I think it's a similar issue with wanting to attract, you know, quality candidates and people who are able to do it. And it really, while it may technically be a part-time job, every time I get that paycheck and I think about the amount of hours I had put into the weeks prior, I think, this is really not a reflection of the work I've been doing. And while it may be competitive as a line item, it's just something just gives me pause. To me, it's less of an overall sticking point, as I said, but I urge the committees in the future to really consider what this job is and how it is reflected in the compensation. For me, the harder point is voting for something when we don't know how something happened, and I'm almost hoping that perhaps we could delay it until we get an answer, because when this committee recommended something back in 2019 and then it wasn't followed, you know, I'm not really psyched about voting for something knowing that it was kind of an in theory recommendation or an in theory vote, but we can circle back to that. The 6,000 in travel, is that something, can you just describe that? And are the Board of Selectmen members across the board compensated in any way for travel? It may be something that should be clear to people, but certainly not to me. But if the first select person doesn't use that 6K, does it go back into a pool, or is it sort of a quote blank check for 6,000? How does that work?
So we asked the question, that is what's set aside, and I believe, if I recall, I asked the question, is that considered salary? It's not. It's to be used for travel expenses. It's a budgetary item, if I recall. And we just felt that it was appropriate. I'm looking at some notes here.
I think, you know, if I just want to interject, my understanding was when we always do the budget every year, it's supposed to be for if the first select person travels to the mayor's conference in Washington, or you know, things like that, to learn, you know, and interact with other chief elected officials. To date, I have never used it. So I guess it just went back into the general fund because we had COVID basically for 2 years and a whole bunch of other things. But that's what I believe it's supposed to be for those types of conferences, maybe a CCM conference or
okay.
Like that.
So we knocked around.
Well, wait.
Knocked around.
Wait. There's a difference between a stipend and a reimbursement.
Exactly.
So
no,
a
this
stipend.
is the travel, Tom. This is the travel line in the budget. It's in the first select woman's budget. It's called travel and expenses, and it's line itemed every year in the actual budget.
Yeah, no, I get it, but what I'm saying is the way there's a distinct difference between a stipend and a reimbursement. A stipend gets paid regardless of whether it's used or not. A reimbursement gets paid only when it's submitted to be reimbursed. So to the question of to whether it's been paid or not, as it's listed here as a stipend, I would think, Madam First Select Woman, it might be part of the check that you get. That's an assumption on my part. That's not. I think that's what Nancy's asking.
That is what I'm asking.
It's Is mileage incorporated as part of that travel expense? It might be.
Well, it's not mileage. It's not mileage. It's literally just a payment to say we understand. And by the way, I'm not questioning it all, right? I'm not questioning the validity of it, but it's basically saying you're running around the town, you're doing this, that, and the other thing. This is a stipend for the wear and tear on your automobile and for other costs associated with that.
So to
Right.
be clear, in that scenario, if that's what it is, if you could clarify, John, it's really salary plus 6,000 if there's no travel taken. If travel happens, it's sort of up against that 6,000 because, as Tom just pointed out, stipend versus reimbursement. Reimbursement would be a cap of 6,000. A stipend means travel or no travel, and in some ways, it doesn't incentivize travel. And you know, current administration aside, it wouldn't incentivize anyone necessarily to travel if that's sort of like the cash equivalent. So can you clarify that, John?
So my recollection of the stipend was to include any travel expenses that a first select person position uses during a year, period.
So stipend, you are using the word stipend.
Right. We call it a stipend. I think it was presented to us as a stipend in the documentation that we received. And
I think that's right.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and there was talk about jacking it up to $9,000 possibly, but then we were talking about, I see a note, Mr. Wall stated that the allowance of $500 a month. Let's say someone said, well, why don't we say $500 a month? That would be, 9,000 miles a year. Bateson suggested raising the allowance to 9,000. And Ms. Bastilli stated that for publicly traded companies, car allowances are a thing of the past, and that incremental miles beyond the usual commute to work are what should be considered in terms of what would be additional for this role. And so we came to the conclusion that what's being received right now is appropriate. And we didn't, to be quite honest with you, we didn't knock that around a whole lot. We just talked about it and just felt that was appropriate for the position.
yeah, I think, again, to be clear, as a stipend, it just doesn't incentivize potential travel opportunities.
Now that I think about it, so it is different. So that's the stuff, because a lot of towns give a card to the.
Right, you don't.
So this is in lieu of, so the travel line and the budget different.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Correct.
In some ways, if it was sort of phrased a little bit differently than like that word to me, as Tom said, in the private sector, it just means something different. And I appreciate that there's like wear and tear on cars and sort of the necessary cost of doing business. But again,
I think the
for
thought
future
process, Nancy, was over the years, a lot of first select persons didn't want to use a town car. They wanted to use their own car, and then maybe they had to reimburse mileage, and it just became just do a stipend for a year. Boom.
And then, well, and to that end, with the Board of Selectmen, is there a reimbursement sort of understanding or capability, or did that not fall under your purview with that 12,000? Is it supposed to cover all that?
You would be. So there was no budgetary item for a stipend for the members of the Board of Selectmen, the Selectmen, women themselves, but you certainly would be entitled to some type of a reimbursement as an employee. If you're, traveling somewhere for official purposes, you would be entitled to some type of a reimbursement, be it mileage. I'm not quite sure what the town of Fairfield policy is, but I'm sure that there's got to be something. Yes.
It would be great to get clarity on that as well as part of follow-up. Again, I appreciate the nature of your conversation, and what you're saying is not outrageous. As I said, I don't have an issue with the percentages and the increases, and the rationale makes sense. For me, the sticky wicket comes back to that insurance cost sharing. I don't like the idea of sort of having voted for something and then not have it, not a process where that sort of was followed through on. So if we could get more answers on that and delay the vote, Otherwise, for me today, I think I'm sort of stuck on that part of it, on that piece of it.
So I would just interject that, I had no idea about the prior Board of Selectmen vote. And the former HR director has been arrested and charged with multiple felonies. So, and there's no one actually in the HR department who used to work there. So I don't know who we could even ask, Nancy, to be honest with you. No one brought it to my attention. They just had me fill out paperwork when I got here, my W-2, whatever, and that's it. And so I don't know who we'd ask.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not pointing an accusing finger in your direction. I'm simply suggesting.
No, I didn't know about it.
Okay.
But obviously, there's nobody left in that department to ask. So I was surprised, actually, when the committee, John, when we put your committee together and that came up. I was surprised by it myself. First I had ever heard of it.
I guess I would say to be able to go back to the person who understood about the salary increase, that might be a good place to start, because surely an understanding of salary increase might go along with an understanding of cost share. And again, maybe we'll get stuck on this and it may have the support anyway, but for me, that is just a sticking point. It's just not enough information. I'd like to understand how it happened before I can vote on it. So, but
right, I was just giving you the information that I don't believe there's any way for us to get you that, because there's nobody here in the HR department who used to work here.
Yeah.
And when you get any new employee, including myself, onboarded through the HR department, you fill out forms, you fill out all the stuff you're supposed to fill out, and that's it. So there's nobody there. I couldn't, even if I wanted to try to get you the answer and get it for myself, there's nobody there.
I'm just going to push back on that, because we all enter jobs and rules have been put into place before we enter the scene, and we still have to comply with them. And again, this is not an accusation of anything, but certainly the information should be available. So, and again, we don't have to go in circles, but I do think it's information that HR should be able to access. So there we are.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
My apologies. I had to unmute myself. I understand both sides of this. I think we do have to realize Nancy brings up a valid point. I guess the question that is there anything that we need to do to resolve the fact that this wasn't done? Number one. Number two, what can we do? And if somebody can report back is what's going to be done to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And number three, we do have to realize that there were extraordinary circumstances. Not only did you lose the HR director, you were also in short order or lost the CFO. So there was a bunch of moving pieces at that time, which probably caused to admittedly what was some confusion back in the turnover administrations. The fact that it lasted for 4 years is a little difficult to swallow. Quite honestly, but it is what it is. I think we should just look and say, is there anything, should anything be done about it? I don't know. I don't have a mind to go back on anything, but maybe that's something for the town attorney. What do you do in these type of situations? Just because I don't know. And then the second thing, the only other question I would have is, since it was brought up, I'd love to understand how that stipend is paid out. Is it paid out on a $500 a month? Just because I'd like to know, since we're calling it a stipend. And if it's not intended to be a stipend but intended to be a reimbursement, then maybe it should be just renamed. Other than that, I have no problem voting for what's in place, because I agree with the percentages and I agree with the percent given Mr. Matola's commentary on the 18% moving forward on the insurance. So that's where I'm coming down.
I would just also encourage us as a board to really look into what that back compensation might be, because it is taxpayer, it is money that we have to be accountable for. And, are we talking thousands? Are we talking many, many thousands? And again, no accusation being pointed, but I do think that we owe it to the community to really have an understanding from a financial standpoint of what it is we're talking about, because, you know, hundreds of dollars here, thousands of dollars here, all of a sudden it's like death by a thousand paper cuts. You know, it may seem insignificant, isolated, but I think the sum total is what we really need to get our head around. So I would just push back that it's not a small matter and that we should find out what that means. But
I don't have a problem. Oh, sorry, Nancy. Yeah.
So if we do proceed with the vote today, my vote won't be to support, but not because I don't agree with the percentage. And I'd like to make sure that the record shows that I really don't have a problem with the percentage increases and the decrease in the cost share on insurance. It's sort of some of the other conversations that we've had and the questions that remain for me that make it not something I'm going to support today.
Can we just get a report back on what the amount is and if the town attorney has any opinion on it? That's number one. Secondly, can we just get an answer on the stipend and how that is paid out? Third, can we understand who sets the percentage contribution for the department heads so that we understand how that's paid out? And fourth, can we just understand what mechanism is in place so this doesn't happen again? I'm willing to vote for this today, but I think those are things that just for good governance, we should probably report back on at the next meeting. That's all.
Given what you've just said, can I make a motion to postpone the vote to a date certain of our next Board of Selectmen meeting, which I believe is September 6th?
Is there any rules on that?
I don't think these recommendations
They don't go into effect till after.
Until after next July 1st, 2024.
Right, so it doesn't,
So you
it's okay,
could
right?
postpone it if you want to.
I mean, I just want to comment too that, you know, interestingly enough, you know, as I said when we found this out, you know, during our staff meeting today, we've been talking about all the things that Kathleen has uncovered, you know, just during her investigation, but, you know, even just really going through the HR department and finding things very interesting, I think, for an update. And I have said to her today that I'd like her to put together a report and do it before the Board of Selectmen, and then send the report to the Board of Finance, you know, just a copy of it in the RTM, because there were significant problems and issues. This is actually small compared to what we've uncovered, which I think is interesting for the board to know and the greater public just to know.
Sorry, point of order though. I did make a motion.
Yes, I was just describing why I thought that was a good idea, because having all that information, I think, is helpful for the public to see, you know, sort of things that happened before, at any rate. But, and listen, I don't have a problem with you. It's supposed to be for November. I don't know that there's like a trigger or a deadline.
No.
I'm not aware of one. Attorney Baldwin, are you aware of one? Because I don't have a problem with it.
Hi, this is Jim Baldwin. No, I'm not aware of anything of that sort.
Okay, I'll second Nancy's motion then, for purposes of throwing it on the table.
All right, do you want to have a discussion on the?
No, I am fine in delaying this. I think it's not going to change the resolution of the questions. Is not going to change my go forward vote. Let me just say that, because I agree with the recommendations that the committee made. The looking into what's happened in the past, and given Madam First Selectwoman, what you just said, it does make sense to delay it and vote on it on September 6th and hear more information. So I'm fine with that as well. And I concur that it doesn't make any difference, because it's just got to be done before the end of our term so that it can be put in place for the next term, as far as I've always been told. So I'm good.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I think it would be good for us to all be able to make an informed vote, because it would potentially impact my own personal ability to support. So I'm in favor of delaying for that reason.
Okay, that's fine. Again, I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get information about why this wasn't uncovered, due to the fact we don't really have anybody to ask, but, I will support that motion. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, John. I don't know that you'll have to be back.
Is
Hate to have to make you go to more meetings,
John,
but-
sorry, is there a formal process for us to request follow-up information, or should we do that through you, Brenda, or how does that work?
I would think through the board, because the committee is,
Okay.
you're disbanded, correct?
We've disbanded, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The next meeting is September 11th, not the 6th, not the.
Oh.
It's September 11th is the next meeting.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
don't meet it, well, that's for the board.
No, what I'm saying is that the compensation committee adjourned and is disbanded now,
Yeah.
so they're not gonna meet back up, right?
Okay.
So,
Got it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
look for that information out of your office or from Jared or Kathleen or whatever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank John.
Thank you, John.
Okay, our next item, item number 7, can I get a motion, resolved that the town of Fairfield may enter into with and deliver to the state of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection any and all documents, take care, John, deemed to be necessary or appropriate for a grant of $2.5 million for the Rooster River Flood Mitigation Project. And be it further resolved that Brenda Ellicott, first selectwoman of the town of Fairfield, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of Fairfield, and to do and perform all acts and things deemed to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second it.
Okay, and Bill, or Mega, you want to just briefly,
Sure.
I'm going to go grab a water. I'm filling my water, Doug?
Just do a brief synopsis, and then obviously if there's questions, we can get into it a little bit more further. But back in June, at the request of State Representative Kristen McCarthy-Vahey, Engineering submitted a 2023 House bond request form for potential state funding in regards to the Rooster River. In late July, we were notified that the state approved our application, and we will formally be receiving the $2.5 million that is planned for 3 phases or 3 sections. Section 1, or Phase 1, is an extension of the proposed Rooster River projects that were approved by the town through the ARPA funds. It's at Fairchild Wheeler Golf Course, Tungus Hill Park, and Owen Fish Park. And again, as they were authorized by the first selectwoman and approved by all 3 town boards. The scope of work will include bidding, permitting, mitigation, final design, and construction. And this would be an extension. So we were putting in for approximately $500,000 to cover the permitting, mitigation, and maybe the increased construction costs from when the money was allotted about a year and a half ago. Phase 2 would cover bathymetric surveying for removal of sediment in a 3,000 foot section in length from Brooklawn Avenue to Kings Highway or North Avenue, which the channel there is about 38 feet on the bottom. We would excavate 1 to 2 feet of depth, recreating the original 10-foot depth, and that section would include any additional testing and the cost of the to deposit the sediments in the river and dispose of them properly. The Section 3 would involve scope of work that is related to the 150 Villa Avenue property that the town recently purchased. That's at 150 Villa Avenue. And also expanding it. We wanted to make it a little bit general for this state bond. We also included water quality improvements that were based on Fussin O'Neill Rooster River Watershed Report about 8-9 years ago. That's where the money is going to be spent, and that was in your backup. We do have a schedule of when we estimate the projects would be in final design and when construction would begin and the construction would be completed. Just recapping, I know it was not in the backup, but I do have the 2023 House Bond request form application that I could send to the boards if needed. But again, just recapping it, it was $2.5 million, and we were figuring between $500,000 and $1 million for the detention pond improvements that were not covered through the ARPA, about $1 million for the sediment removal, and there's $500,000 for water quality and environmental improvements related to that 2013 Fuss and O'Neill report and the 150 Villa Avenue improvements at the town parcel there. I can go into more detail, or if that's enough, I'll leave it up to the board.
Thank you, Bill. I'll open it up to the board.
We all know how bad the Rooster River has been, and that this has been a priority. Bill, in your view, this will obviously help that, right? This isn't just kind of a nice to have or whatever, right? This would address some things that are really necessary relative to the Rooster River. Is that from your perspective correct?
My perspective that these would be helpful improvements. They will benefit thousands of people along the Rooster River. It will not solve completely, though, the Rooster River flooding, but it certainly will help, and certainly the ones on the fringes, maybe now they don't get flooded, and the ones that do get flooded, maybe they get flooded less frequently.
Right. And all the towns are on board with this at this point in time, is that right?
Well, all the towns.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bridgeport. Yeah. Oh, yes. We're constantly working with Bridgeport, City of Bridgeport, the Engineering Department, and Department of Public Facilities. Earlier this spring, we did a joint effort with them regarding taking out organic trash, I guess we'd call it, or debris. We were not able to excavate sediment because we need a permit for that. And that's what some of this would be covered with the bond request grant that we're receiving from the state. We are also hoping that Bridgeport would share resources like they did, as I mentioned, or maybe even cost share. There's a potential that they may also get grant money, and obviously if we would combine forces, that would be a better impact and would serve both municipalities.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the update on that.
Sure.
I don't have any questions, but thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate, listen, all of the money we can get toward the phase 1, phase 2. There's a lot of phases that are involved with this. We've been working on this diligently, to get things done with our ARPA money. Obviously, we had some delays with state permitting, but I was appreciative that the Kristen McCarthy-Vahey was able to assist with that because, well, we can use it, that's for sure. Is there any further comment from the board?
No, I'm good.
No.
Is there any comment from the public? Back to the board. All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
All right, you too. Take care. Okay, our next item is our monthly pavilion, Penfield Pavilion update project, and Mr. Brummer is here to just give brief update.
Good evening, all. I assume you can hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the update, I'm really going to go over 4 areas. The first is the construction drawings have all been completed, been recently received, reviewed, gone over. The bids based on those construction drawings, will be going out this week. They should be publicly available, I'm going to guess, in the next 48 hours. So we're pretty much on schedule to begin sometime in September to begin construction. We had, in terms of going through the construction documents, in terms of going through the bids, we did make one change that I wanted to briefly talk about, something that we kind of discovered in terms of putting the bids together. If you look at the entire project as one, it really makes it much more difficult to get good bids. What I mean by that is we have and this is all publicly available information, but there are 8 hotspots, what I call hotspots, located on or around Penfield. And we really, in going through the bid packages and preparing the bids, we really did make a determination that it would make more sense to basically remediate those spots before we bring in the entire construction crews. And so the plan now is we're going to remediate those spots first before the construction team shows up. And if you can imagine an army basically descending on Penfield with all these hotspots around, the hotspots require hazmats and that kind of stuff to remove. And again, there's not a lot in terms of the tonnage or the areas, but they are hot. And as a result, we'd be asking construction guys who have nothing to do with that, with the removal, to be wearing special gear and all that kind of stuff. So obviously the cost would go up, and it just makes everything much more cumbersome. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing all those hot spots first, under the auspices of DEEP and all that stuff, before we bring the construction crews in. It's going to make it a lot easier, a lot cleaner, and somewhat quicker to deal with the overall project. So that's the plan, that's what we're going with, and the bids reflect that. So that's really where we are with the construction drawings. When are the bids supposed to be received? They'll be received sometime in September, and we will go, we're going to go through the scope of work. We'll award the different bid packages, and then we'll move forward with construction. My second point I wanted to bring up is now that the construction drawings are in, I'm in the process of sending them out to FEMA. I've set up some meetings with FEMA, or we're in the process of doing it, so that FEMA is on board with everything that we're planning on doing, not only in terms of construction, but also in terms of the estimates regarding the famous 50-50 rule. So that's all going to FEMA. That's all being discussed, and that's all on schedule as well. The third thing I want to talk, go ahead, I'm sorry, Tom.
Yeah, 2 things, Tom, while you're going through here. I want to go back to your point number 1 on kind of the change in plan. Number 1, it makes a lot of sense the way that's laid out now. So I'm fine with that. The question I would have is, what does that do to timelines potentially, as well as what does it do to any cost projections?
Well, I think in terms of timelines, I think it speeds it up a little bit, although I don't think I'm going to see dramatic effect on it in terms of timing. In terms of costs, I'm assuming it's going to save some money. And really, we're so close to getting the bids in, I hesitate to talk about estimates because if I say it's going to save a lot of money on estimates, I haven't even seen the bids come in yet, so I don't really know. But I have to assume that through all our conversations that it's going to be more cost effective, if you will, because as I said earlier, we're not asking bidders, subcontractors to show up and have all their employees worried about contamination. That I think would cause a lot of consternation. So I'm assuming it's going to save.
Yeah, I'm not surprised on the cost side. I am in terms of exactly the reasons you laid out. I'm a little surprised on the timeline side, because I would have thought if you don't have the people, and by the way, it's the right decision. But if you don't have the people all working concurrently, I don't know how that timeline gets speeded up, is just what my thought process was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. And I think the thing that we're struggling with, or I have been struggling with, is compared to what? You know, I don't think this was ever really considered when we talked about timelines and estimates and everything else. And because quite honestly, I don't think we realized it until we were really putting the bid packages together. What are we asking people to do? And when we see these hot spots, I'm like, why are we asking everybody to wear hazmats when they have nothing to do with it? So let's just cut this. Let's do this first before we really attack the entire problem. So I think when that realization occurred, it was like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So it's compared to what, I guess, is what I'm struggling with.
Well, what you've presented to the town bodies before, does it have any meaningful impact on the ability for the pavilion to open on a timely basis, given the originally proposed timeline? That's kind of what I'm asking. I think you probably know that answer better in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, if anything, it's going to speed it up a little bit, but how much, I really don't know at this stage. But we may, once the bids come in, we may have a better sense.
Yeah, the only other, and I know you want to go forward with your presentation, but the only other commentary or question I had, because it's top of mind, is we had a long discussion on the insurance. So is there any update on the insurance issues?
Well,
yeah, go ahead then. Go ahead. That was my next point.
No, you can answer. Go ahead. Answer the question.
Yes, and I think following up on the various discussions we've had in the past, I've learned more about insurance than I've ever cared to know. It is a very difficult thing to acquire. I'm very glad we're not building in Florida, and I'll leave it at that. We have obtained a builder's risk policy, but quite honestly, between now and when we begin, I want to do as much as I can to supplement the policy. You know, I have what I would consider to be a low-level policy, and I really want to get more insurance coverage, quite honestly, between now and when we start construction.
Give us a little bit more detail, Tom. Yeah.
It's just a policy that covers approximately $12 million. It's really a policy that covers the project as well as the building, and it kind of, how can I put it? It kind of goes with the project as the project goes, and I'm just uncomfortable with that. So in everything that I've been talking about, I've got Kerma working on it. I've got our usual broker. I've retained outside brokers to try to get another policy involved to supplement this initial policy. And I don't want to get bogged down in hours of arcane, what I consider to be arcane insurance law. But I think the bottom line is stuff we've been saying all along. And this is in consultation with Brenda. She's very well aware of where we are. I don't want to go forward unless we can safely sleep at night, that we are covered during the construction. We're covered before construction, we'll be covered after. So I want to make sure we're as covered as we can be during construction. So
this,
I hope in the next...
Sorry, I'd like to jump in on that point if I could.
I just want to say in my...
Can he just please finish, and then
I know,
I'll
but
open
Tom
it
had a
up
chance
again.
to ask questions, so I was doing the same.
I know, but where
Yes, I
he's
will wait.
answering the question, and then I'll open it up again to the board.
I just want to say over the next couple of weeks, I expect to have more of an update for you, and I'll be able to get very specifics as to exactly what the policy, all policies will cover and what they won't cover. So I'll be able to answer every question in great detail once I've finished everything I'm trying to accomplish.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, so Tom Bremer, forgive my frustration, but I feel like we in written communication have gone back and forth on this, and I haven't gotten an answer. So I'm hoping that we can clarify this today. Understanding that not being able to obtain the appropriate amount of construction insurance specifically is grounds to go back to FEMA to say we can't get a certain level of appropriate construction coverage. Is that something that you are factoring into your planning? Is it, again, we may land exactly where we are and proceeding and going forward, but just so the community feels that we are checking all the boxes, have you talked to FEMA? Have you sort of, are they in on the conversation about your efforts to date on trying to acquire construction specific insurance?
I have not specifically raised that issue with FEMA. I will do so over the next week or so when I have my next meeting. But I have to, the reason that I haven't raised it is I think, and everything I've been told from FEMA to date has told me that whether we get insurance or not is irrelevant for FEMA. But I will confirm that yet again with them.
Okay.
But my understanding is they don't care. It's our problem, fix it. That's their attitude.
And I appreciate that. I've gotten conflicting. Now, I am not acting in any official capacity, obviously, in the way you are. In my own due diligence, I've heard conflicting reports or conflicting interpretations. So it would be really good when you do have that conversation, if we could just get that sort of proof of that correspondence and their communication and findings, just so we have it on the record. I have gotten a lot of inbound questioning on that specific front, and there is a statute that cites it, which I shared in a previous email with you. So I look forward to that answer. One other comment, when you had said earlier in answering Tom Flynn's question, in terms of what you were exposing people to, I think we've all had a sense of some of the concerning material that will have to be uncovered as a result, the contaminants. So how much of the, like, we don't know what we're finding, is there any sense, or do you have any sense of unforeseen costs involved in that? Since you said, you weren't really sure what you were asking people to be doing.
So during the presentation, Nancy, on the Penfield Pavilion, we discussed this at length regarding DEP and EPA being involved throughout the process. Obviously we don't know how far down, we don't know, they have done extensive testing under that building, and that has been shared with the Board of Selectmen ad nauseum. Obviously we can't predict if the soil itself, if there's additional issues with it, but right now that's not exactly what we're seeing. It was tested so many times. I mean, tested by the licensed environmental with DEEP's review and oversight. So that's a question that nobody knows. We do believe we know what those contaminants are based on the licensed environmental professional and DEEP's analysis. So it's just the depth of the soil. That's what we've been talking about all along, that we don't know, according to the invoices, if you remember during many meetings us discussing it, according to the invoices, we believe there's a specific depth of soil there, but we won't really know until we start digging. So again, we have to wait until we actually are digging it up. And they will obviously be involved throughout that process. I mean, that's a totally separate issue from FEMA. This is a contamination that has to be removed regardless. So obviously, we would be, if we did stumble across more contaminated fill than we originally believed, we would be using our the money that we've been setting aside for this entire debacle from the very beginning. Because regardless of the structure or FEMA or anything, that soil's got to go. So we have to clean it up. The town has an obligation to do that, and we will do it.
No, understood. All the more reason why, if the construction insurance unforeseen becomes untenable, going down every avenue because we don't have a choice in terms of the contaminants. But, these other expenses, I just want to make sure we're making the most informed steps forward, which is why I sort of keep digging into this insurance question because, to what cost, how high? So that's just something I look forward to hearing FEMA's answer on. But thanks. I don't have any more questions.
Any other questions, Tom?
No, I'm good.
I just have one more issue that I wanted to bring up, the resiliency study, because I see one of the members of the FECB here. We have met with RACE. We have met with the people from the FECB, Flood Erosion Control Board, and that study's ongoing with RACE. We expect results by the end of the year. My hope is that once they have completed their study, we go to DEEP with our proposals and we get a response from DEEP. We'll then have a sense of what we're going to do and how to move forward on the resiliency part. So that's all I've got right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to consider and act upon the tax rate funds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $28,326.30?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion from the public? Back to the item, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Just a couple quick things, and then we have an executive session, and I want to get to that as quick as possible. I just want to mention that if you are a veteran, you are eligible for a property tax exemption. You must file your discharge, your DD-214s with the town clerk by September 30th to be eligible for the exemption the following year. And that's on the tax assessor website, and I've also shared it in my recent newsletter. And then last week, the Arts Commission held its first meeting, which I kicked off. The members are excited to get going, and I just wanted to let you know that they did start. And I just want to wish our students a great first day, which is next week, and our students and teachers and staff much success in the new school year. And I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Sorry, I do have a question under new business. Sure. Is that now? Sure. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
And yes, good luck to all the kids going back. It's really depressing that the summer is coming to a very fast end. I understand that the UI transmission line project, that there's an important deadline in talking to the state reps. Is there anything that can be shared here today on that?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised because it's the first time I've been reached out to by the state delegation regarding the siting council and any deadlines. Jen Leeper texted me on Saturday, so I reached out to one of our outside councils to have a discussion about siting, because our town has been meeting with UI for many months, zoning, conservation, engineering, to go over this whole project to give them their input. But so I was unaware that there was a deadline of any sort. So hopefully we've had some meetings today, and we're going to meet tomorrow again with the outside council. And I need to speak to her again too, to get a better understanding of this. I mean, we're going to submit. We have submitted tons of information for months, because this goes around the Metro Center, it goes around a whole bunch of areas. But we're going to submit that information, but I have to speak to our outside counsel and our departments that have been engaged with this over the last, I want to say 5 or 6 months.
Okay. Just because in talking to the state delegation, and I believe it was Representative Leeper, I know that this has been in discussion since 2021. She did try to reach me on Friday. I wasn't available. I was traveling. I'm getting my kid off to college. But I guess we need a seat at the table, and so that's what the push was for. So just wanted to reiterate. But thanks for the update.
Yeah, Brenda, do we have a seat at the table? Is that what's going on right now?
Jen Leeper just notified the town about this intervening thing, so we're looking at it. We're meeting again tomorrow to find out more.
Okay. Okay, as long as it's on the radar and it's being, because I had not heard anything about it until I was reached out to on Saturday as well.
Well, I included, UI had public meetings on this back in January. I included all that in my newsletter, and things of that nature. But we're just trying to get some more information about this, this deadline that, Rep. Leeper told me about on Saturday, so.
Well, I think the thing that wasn't clear was some of the implications, some of the ancillary implications, Brenda, even in the public hearings and the like. So the fact the encroachment on people's, the potential encroachment on people's properties and things of that sort. So you're absolutely right. I think there were some hearings and things, but I don't think it was fully comprehended. And at least from my discussions, I don't think many people fully comprehended it. I think that's what's been the surprise and been what's caused the consternation over the last, 72 hours or what have you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, I was surprised to even hear there was a deadline Saturday. When I was a state rep, I used to forward these things all the time to the former first selectmen. If there was a bill pending and about municipal tax or something, regarding Fairfield, I would send it. I used to even send them to you, Tom. You were the chair of the finance board, right? So just forward stuff so you guys would have this. But I wasn't aware of any deadlines about intervening until Saturday. So we're trying to find a bit more out because, again, we've been working with them, our departments who have, oversight and conservation areas and zoning and things of that nature, trying to give input and information, and then the public hearings happened as well. So I'll report back when I find out more tomorrow.
Yeah, but, again, I just want to push back because UI doesn't historically work with legislators. They work with municipalities, and I know this has been in the works just in my conversations with Representative Leeper since 2021. So, I just want to be
careful. I'm not
throwing
saying
anyone under the bus.
No, I'm not saying we weren't aware of the project. We were. But the siting council is a state thing. It's a state function, and these things are a state function.
I guess the question is, when did we know that they were going to be encroaching on people's lands to the degree that we're hearing that they are now? But be that as it may, it's just good if the town gets a seat at the table, or has that seat at the table to kind of represent our citizens. I guess that's really what I'm interested in making sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, listen, again, the town has been giving input all along. UI did have public hearings for residents who may be directly impacted back in January on this. So, and I put that in my newsletter, and I believe people, were given information about it. But again, we are super involved. We want to be involved, of course. It's just I wasn't aware there was some deadline regarding intervening status. So trying to find out more about that.
All right. And for anyone that's listening, we've got to make it clear for the record that this is not a lack of a specific representative not informed.
No, I wasn't making that assertion. I'm just saying.
Right. So to be
clear, I wasn't aware of the impending deadline until Saturday. Is there any other item, or can we, can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the executive session is pending litigation, Roe versus Town of Fairfield, with attorney James Baldwin.